onto Cape independence. The whole secession movement is a movement that is based on failure, in my opinion. And it's an excuse. I don't believe we should be dividing up the country. I don't think we should be dividing up the people of the country, and I don't think we should be dividing up the country's resources. I do not, if I live in Cape Town, if for some unknown reason they had to succeed in their secession, I will leave the Western Cape. I will not live under their reign and rule.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the 360 Experience with myself, Thomas Mabaso. Today, I have the founder of Organic Humanity Movement. I know that a lot of you guys, you said that I need to get Miss Lauren Bernardo. I know many of you guys said I need to get Miss Lauren Bernardo on the platform, and I'm happy to say that I finally got her. It's our second time. How are you?
Yeah, second time, lucky. Hi, Thomas. Thank you so much for having me again. I'm very well. Remember last time we were talking, we still had a whole bunch of signatures to collect. Well,
Yes.
we finally got them. So I think we are speaking now as a party officially on the ballot paper. That should be announced by midday by the IEC. So we're very excited and happy.
So now you are an official political party.
So exciting. Well, official political party contesting, and we overcame the hurdle. So we are very excited, very happy, and we can't wait to just carry forward that momentum in the campaign.
Yeah. So many people don't know about you, Organic Humanity Movement, but I read a bit about you, and I said that you guys are radical. So I'm going to give you a chance to tell everyone what is Organic Humanity Movement and what is it that you guys are trying to achieve.
Love it, Thomas. Did you call us radical? I take that as a massive compliment. We're trying to achieve complete system change. So we are the party to end all parties. We don't want political parties to exist anymore. So we are using the political system to get that achieved. So if we get into parliament this time around, we'll already start lobbying and creating the legislation necessary to change the Electoral Act and the Constitution of South Africa to get rid of the multi-party system and bring in a new electoral system where all voters elect their leaders directly. So you will vote directly for your president. You'll vote directly for your member of parliament who will live within your constituency. You'll vote directly for your mayor and directly for your councillor. And we want to do away with provincial legislation because we believe it's a complete waste of taxpayers' money. Whatever provincial does, either national or local government can take care of it.
So you guys want to dissolve political parties, but you are also a political party. So I guess many people would say, like, how would you guys go on about this one?
We will also be dissolved, so we're not immune to that. Every single political party will be dissolved. So changing the Electoral Act is not enough. In 2017, there was a movement that tried to change the Electoral Act to make way for independence, and they succeeded. And now we have more barriers in place for unrepresented parties to contest. So it didn't improve our democracy, it made it worse. Our strategy is a little bit different. We want to change the Constitution because within the first few lines of the Constitution, it states that we are a multi-party democracy. But I believe our democracy has matured beyond party politics, and it's party politics that is a downfall of our country. It's why we have infrastructure collapse. It's why everything is failing all around us, and it's why the economy is declining and why people are suffering. We need to get rid of party politics, and you can only do that not through changing the Electoral Act, but by first changing the Constitution. So imagine us in Parliament, whether it's 1 seat or 5 seats or whatever, we will be working with other political party members, MPs from other parties as well to put forward these changes. We believe we will get their support. And of course, we will then, if the Constitution is, for instance, passed in National Assembly where it needs to get passed and it gets the votes it needs for it to be passed, then immediately, like with immediate effect, political parties get dissolved. So they will no longer be represented by government, funded by government. They will no longer get taxpayers' money. They will no longer be recognized by government. And then everyone that has bums on seats will become interim officials, interim MPs until the next elections. So when we make those constitutional changes, we can put a clause in there that says elections must take place within the next year or within the next 2 years or whatever we deem to be practical at the time, then what will happen is that independent candidates from around the country will come forward and try get into office, whether at the local council level or whether it's for the president. You, Thomas, would be able to become a candidate to be the president if you wanted to, or you could become a candidate for your ward where you live in Balcom. It's up to you. But what we'll have then is that individuals, such as what we have in various legislatures across the country right now, won't be able to hide behind a political party. We are bringing a much more transparent, much more accountable democratic process, because you have to answer to yourself and to those, your voters, your support base, and they are the ones that are going to be giving you campaign funds. They're the ones that are going to be donating to you. So by cutting out the gang system that is political parties, I believe we bring government closer to the people. We also have, and I think this is important, we have across the world, wherever you are, we only have a 50% democracy, because voting someone in is only half a democracy. You need the opportunity to vote someone out as well. And we have that within the new Electoral Act, which we will be putting forward, the opportunity to vote someone out if you are not happy with what they are doing.
So, you know, many political parties would actually push back against you guys, because some of them are going to say that we understand that you guys are saying that the country is collapsing today because of political parties, but are you not judging all of us based on the African National Congress? Because the ANC, it is the only party that has been in charge for the past 30 years. So you can't say that political parties are the ones that are responsible for the country being destroyed, whereas the African National Congress is the only party that has been in charge for the past 30 years. So what is going to be your response to some of that? Because I know that you are going to face that. Many people have actually said that government has failed us. You know, when you speak with the people on the ground, they are saying that the government has failed us, but other political parties are saying, no, the African National Congress is the one that has failed you. You have never given us a chance. The ANC is the one that has failed you. It doesn't mean just because the ANC has failed you, all of us are going to fail you. So what is going to be your response to that?
I think it's about control at the end of the day. Who has control over the candidate? And if there's a party in control of the candidate, it means the voter is not in control. I was in the opposition party. I worked in the opposition party. I was a member. I volunteered, all of that. And I left because of the disgusting internal politics that I couldn't handle and many people don't handle. Normal, upstanding citizens like you and me usually refuse to get involved in politics because of how politics works. And what I realized is that decent, upstanding citizens run a mile. They don't want to be representative. So what happens? There's this void, and I call it the unemployables. And it doesn't matter which color T-shirt it is, which party it is. It's the unemployables of society that end up becoming our public representatives. And I think that's one thing that is very shocking is how much influence perhaps organizations like UNESCO has on political parties shaping policy. And it's not just with the ruling party, it's with all of them. So one thing that we also want to do is break the international control over our country. We believe, yes, having relationships with other countries is important, but not being controlled by other countries. And it's many parties that will, in a heartbeat, implement, for instance, comprehensive sexuality education by UNESCO or any kind of climate change policy given to them by an international body. And we believe that we should make laws authentically as South Africans for South Africans. We shouldn't be looking for ideas from the international community, and we shouldn't be taking orders from the international community. And I don't trust a single party not to do that.
Yeah. So what kind of pushback are you guys expecting?
I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about it. I mean, I think once the people truly understand and grasp the concept of what is written in our manifesto, will get behind it very, very quickly. So I can imagine, I don't know, smear campaigns and things like that, but we're ready for it. We just have a goal and we just want to go for it. Our goal is system change. All our members know that that is the one thing we are living, eating and breathing. All our members are living, eating and breathing system change, and we won't stop until we achieve it. And I think both the weakness and the strength of OHM is dependent on the action of its members. And it's the members that are going to make it happen. And we'd love for you to join OHM and help us as well. We have no policies. We make no promises. We have a manifesto. We have a vision. And that's what we're working towards.
Yeah. So you want to dissolve political parties. How do you think South Africans are actually going to receive that message? And sticking with that, don't you think that if you guys are pushing to dissolve political parties, that is not going to lead to populism? Because now you're going to open up a space for independent candidates, and people are now going to start saying wild things to get attention. So isn't that going to lead to populism?
I actually think it's the contrary. So I'm going to answer all your three questions in one, I
Yeah,
think. So firstly, yeah, there will only be independents. So an
yeah,
independent will also have to go through a process much like an unrepresented does today, much like an independent, even in today's electoral act, goes through a process. Our process, for instance, would be if you want to become a presidential candidate, you'll need between 5,000 and 10,000 signatures, and you also have to pay a fee. If you want to be an MP candidate, you'll need to put forward 2,000 signatures and also have to pay a fee, etc. Same for mayor, same for ward councillor. Just the signature requirement changes according to your constituency. And I think, if you are someone that is a drunk in your community, or if you're I don't know, an unsavory character that has scammed people out of money, you're going to really struggle to get those signatures. So you getting the community support without the party's backing beforehand already means that a certain percentage of the community sees you as a person that could lead. So I think that's already a huge filtering process. And then what we need, we must not forget, and we must not undermine the intelligence and the discerning eye of the voters. They need to look at all these candidates. These candidates now have an extra mission because they haven't got a political brand, they haven't got PR budget to hide behind. Now they have to go into public, and yes, they might say radical things, but they're going to have to still be a representative for the people, not a representative for the party. And because we have the clause that allows people, and there's also a specific process they have to follow, the people, the voters, there is a clause that will be able to get any candidate or any, public representative voted out should they not be fulfilling their mandate. And because they have that, they should understand that they are accountable not to an organization, not to funders, but to the people. The people have the power. We have put the voters through the system that we are proposing. We've put the voters in the driving seat. And in the current system, that is not the case. So I think it will be quite the contrary. I'm excited about the public discourse that will take place. People will really have to push for their principles and their ideals and what they want to do. And then they also have to make sure, the voters will have to make sure that if no one there is voicing their ideals and their principles, then they're going to have to stand for public office. So it's a
yeah.
much more vibrant, much more participatory, much more robust democracy, and I can't wait for it.
So are you going to put any legislations for the people that are going to try to be popular? Because we know that is what is going to happen. Because I think that if we dissolve political party, which is something that I think you're going to face a lot of pushback, because right now, as we speak, we have, I think, 350 political party. Everyone wants to be in parliament through political parties. So if you want to dissolve political parties, I suspect that you're going to get a lot of pushbacks. But again, in terms of the funding, how is that going to be regulated? Because people are still going to represent their funders, just like now, how political parties are representing their funders. Political parties are not there merely because they care about the people. We know that political parties are there to convey the message of their funders. How are you guys going to maneuver around that?
Well, firstly, government funding to parties will end. It'll cease to exist. Every single year, 325 million rand, it's actually more now, but it was 325 million rand every single year goes to a political party. And that's not to pay MPs. Like MPs and anyone that's elected to public office, they are paid by the government, not the party. So the party gets 325 million rand to spend on itself, just to have its officers and all the rest, pay salary to the administrative staff. So that's going to come to a complete end. Then remember, the Independent Electoral Commission will still exist. It will just take on certain different responsibilities. And instead of looking at managing parties, they'll now be managing independent candidates. And in our law currently, there's a Political Party Funding Act. Well, now we'll just change it to an Independent Candidate Funding Act. And for instance, we agree that if someone makes sizable donations, we can continue to make sure that is in the public domain so everyone knows who is funding who. So there's transparency there. And I think a big focus, again, just needs to be on voter education. Understand on what platforms you can find what information, and I think there needs to be more work done by the IEC, and definitely in the new system we're proposing, to educate voters on different political parties. Make sure that there is a website where you can go and click on all the different options that there are. And then voters will be able to make an educated decision.
Yeah. So I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Ne? So let's say you guys win an election. You win an election. You have your members. You already have some of the people that have already joined the Organic Humanity Movement. Once you guys get to governance, how are you going to dissolve yourself to push this thing of independence?
We will have to, so we have to either become the ruling party in government, or we're going to have to lobby the other political party MPs and get them to vote. So then we will put forward this change in Parliament. We'll approach Parliament, we'll approach the bench and say, this is what we believe needs to change in the Constitution and in the Electoral Act. Then we are relying on either being the ruling party or getting the correct amount of MPs. I think for certain changes in the Constitution, you need 66%. For other changes, you need 75%. So we need that amount of MPs to vote in our favor. Then that part of the Constitution that says we're a multi-party democracy, that's a new word. We're going to completely change that. It's going to say we are a direct election democracy, where there's only independent candidates. So immediately, parties are just out of the equation, but those people that are in Parliament will become an interim government until the very next elections, where you'll for the first time vote out of a pool of candidates for the president, out of a pool of candidates for your MP that's geographically based, and so on.
Are you guys willing to say that, okay, if South Africans do not accept this whole idea of dissolving political parties, are you guys willing to step back and say we have lost?
Well, what choice will we have if the South African people don't accept it? It's something I'm willing to work for till the end. And, anyone that thinks rationally, I believe, should see that the political party system is not serving this country at all, and that our democracy needs to mature beyond the politics of the day that we've experienced. That's resulted in just suffering. It's resulted in suffering and death at the end of the day, if you really look at the consequences of failed government. And so if people really don't accept it, I do think that the conversation should then be around reforming what we can in the current system. But as for the Organic Humanity Movement, we are only going to strive to change the system. That is our only goal. That's our only priority, is changing the entirety of the system as it stands, because we believe South Africa will then become an independent, strong, sovereign nation with a national identity, and we can finally start to prosper as a country, get a strong economy. People can work themselves out of poverty, and we can start getting along as a people and becoming a leader in the nation. In the international community, sorry.
All right. Yeah. Will South Africa be the first one to implement something like this? Because do we have a template somewhere in the world where they have implemented something like this?
When we formulated these changes, and when I say we, it's the National Executive Council and I, we didn't look at many examples from overseas at all. These are just, we looked at our current flawed system, and then we thought, how can we improve democracy? How can we make sure democracy exists in the best form possible? So I don't see, one thing I must just specify is, I don't see democracy as a system. I see democracy as an ideal to strive towards. So many countries can say they're a democracy and that they have democratic principles, but it's the degree to which you apply democratic principles. So I think we will be the most democratic country in the world if and when we implement these changes. So I can't speak for other countries at the moment, but I think this is brand new, and I hope other countries follow suit as well.
All right. So in terms of voting, what specific changes would make voting more accountable in your system?
Well, that's kind of exciting. I think it really brings to life the political changes we want to make in the electoral system. We want to actually change the voting system. So not many people think twice about this, but there are many different voting systems in the world, and you can go and do research on the internet about the different voting systems that exist and different voting systems that are used, and under which circumstances different voting systems are used. We want to propose something along the lines of the alternate voting system, where you don't just take your pen and mark X next to one person's face and name, or at the moment it's a party, next to one party's face and name. In the new system with independent candidates, you'll be able to vote differently. So you will vote for as many candidates as you want and like. So for instance, if there's 10 candidates running for the president, or even just 10 candidates running for local councillor, maybe there's more, maybe there's less. You can either mark your favorite top 3 and you'll rate them from 1 to however many you like, in order, 1 being your number 1 favorite. So you can mark 1, 2, 3. You can say Thomas number 1, I'm number 2, and someone else number 3, and you can leave all the rest. Or you can rank all of them on the ballot paper from first favorite to least favorite. What happens in a system, this system is famous for getting rid of dead wood, getting rid of the weakest candidates, because you have South Africans are extremely diverse. We have lots of ideologies. We want lots of different things. We have a different understanding of life and what we want from life. So we're going to vote very differently. But you'll see through voting this system, the candidates all of us don't want will definitely not make it. So what we'll get at the end of the day, whoever gets elected into public office, will be a better caliber of candidates out of everyone. And then the other thing is, in terms of the president, and this is the part of the voting that I really feel strongly about, is that the president wins, okay? They got the majority vote, they're in public office. Now the second runner-up and the third runner-up then become the president's advisor, or part of the president's advisory council. And I think this is going to help us shift from a majority rule mindset to a representation mindset, understanding that we as elected officials are representing the people of South Africa. We're not fighting with each other. We need to work together to make the country work for all the people.
Yeah. I know that Organic Humanity Movement is pushing for independent candidates, but okay, let's say a couple of people are running for various offices. Don't you think that some of those people that will be running for various offices can end up teaming up? Because once people start realizing that, okay, maybe I have similar ideas with Lauren, maybe I can team up with Lauren so that we can win a certain office, and that will essentially bring us back to these political parties that we are trying to run away from. Don't you think that is going to lead us there?
I don't think so, not at all. Because firstly, in 1994, when the transition happened, the political parties that existed, that were in government, stayed in government this whole time. They got funding from the beginning. They were strong from the beginning. If there were any breakaway parties that got enough votes to be in parliament, it's because they broke away from one of the main parties. And that stronghold has existed since, I would say, pre-apartheid days, if you look at it. The ANC has existed from before then. The ANC as a liberation movement then became the ruling party, but the strength of that existed from pre-apartheid days. I can't find a single party on the ballot, really, that doesn't have roots in pre-apartheid. So any party that has decided to spring up in our new democracy to try and represent the people with the best of intentions cannot, because the system is completely skewed against them. The system keeps new parties out and keeps the old parties in, and this is why the country is not changing. So once the recognition of political parties is dissolved, and once funding is ended, we'll already be on an even playing field, and people might form associations, they might form alliances. That can't be stopped, but the fact that government is not recognizing them as part of the political system, I think that is enough.
Yeah. So in terms of cancelling the funding, if you cancel the funding, don't you think that is going to hurt the people in terms of, rallying out their message to the people? Because people need money to go from certain places to rally out your message to people. So if we are going to cancel this funding, don't you think that is going to be a stumbling block for a lot of people who will be running for different offices?
Your question highlights the flaw of the system, because candidates now in the parties that we have learned to know, and maybe some of you love, the candidates in those parties would never be able to get funding on their own. They're hiding behind often internationally funded or often billionaire funded people. So the parties have the strength, the parties have the financial strength, and at the end of the day, the parties are just little puppets for those that are funding them to roll out policy that's in business interests, not people's interests. So what happens now? Funding's gone. As an independent candidate, if your ideas are good and worthy, and if we are living in a robust participatory democracy, then the people should be more than willing to donate to the candidates they believe in. Therefore, the barriers we put in place, the signatures and the funding, the fees that the candidates have to pay, are enough because it proves that people support the idea, and OM is already testing that theory. Because we are not funded by corporations, we're not funded by big business or anything like that. We only rely on the donations of our members, and we're trying to fight these massive parties, institutions that have been around since forever. So it's really working. We've fundraised, even now, when I paid the IEC fees, we fundraised for the IEC fees last year. We got all the fees within 3 months. And then now when I paid on Friday, we were left with 700 Rand in our account. And we put through another fundraising campaign to the public. And some members donated, some strangers donated. We're now at, I think, 63,000 Rand, if I'm not mistaken. So it's about lobbying the people. Hey, look at us, look at our message. This is what we're trying to do. This is who we are. Are you willing to put the money behind the support? And it's working for us. So we are proving that it will work for independents as well later when we implement the system.
Yeah, you mentioned that people will be the ones to fund their candidates that they want to go to parliament. But that will have to happen if people are actually employed, because right now in the country we are facing huge numbers of unemployment rate. So how would this reform system help the country to deal with these issues that we are facing today? Unemployment rate, inequality, poverty, all of these issues that are facing South Africa today. How would this reformed system actually help South Africa?
Okay, first I just want to address something else you mentioned there. So a lot of people might say a lot of voters just can't afford to fund a candidate. I think that if you have enough support, just 20 rands, just 10 rands make a difference. And I think, you're obviously not going to ask for donations from people who are living below the poverty line, but those who like your ideas, who are employed, they only need to donate 20 rand, 50 rand, 100 rand here and there. This is the model we're using to run the organic humanity movement, and it's working. But in terms of fixing the social ills in society and the absolute suffering, which we are not blind to at all, I actually think often I just think about the circumstances people are living in and think the country should be brought to a standstill until we have implemented certain solutions, because it's really ridiculous that so much suffering exists and no solutions are to be found anywhere from any of our politicians, any of our government leaders. So what we believe is that right now, the whole country is under a system of oppression. And there's many systems of oppression, and it includes the government structure itself, it includes the political system, it includes the justice system, it includes the education system, which I think is a really big one. And of course, it includes the healthcare system as well, and also the financial system. So all these systems work against the people of South Africa. So when you change the political system to begin with, and bring in this new way of electing our leaders, we open the opportunity for the other systems to also change. So we really believe in changing the education system. When we set out the government structure, we have taken education away from national governments and put it in the hands of local government. So what you have across the country is a much more flexible, much more fluid education system, an education curriculum, and a way of actually teaching the kids. Because the current education system is not empowering children to grow up to become adults that can contribute to society. It's not empowering children to become adults that are creative and can come up with solutions to problems. What the education system does is create more slaves for the financial system, and that is all. And this is why we're in the crisis we are in, and this is why we're not coming up with solutions to simple problems. So the education system is key, but changing the political system comes first. There's a specific order you have to follow. And as for the financial system, we believe that we should create parallel economies. We believe the voter base should be strong enough, and I believe the informal sector should be strengthened, not regulated, strengthened, given the freedom to flourish, because I believe it's the informal sector, the informal trading sector, that is the true lifeblood of our country. And government is just trying to regulate that left, right, and center. So we believe in more freedom. We believe people need to live in a country where those systems of oppression are removed. So if if you have failure in your life, if you have difficulty in your life, it's not because of the government, it's not because of the education system, it's because of your own weaknesses or whatever. And then you can work on that. So that's what we want to do. We want to remove the obstacles.
Yeah. I saw on your website, you also said that you want to free South Africa from global organizations, but man, we already owe a lot of people a lot of money. How are you guys going to go on about that?
Well, the way I see it is that we need to strengthen our military and we need to strengthen the people of South Africa, both of those hand in hand. And then we can say to the international community, come and get it. They're not going to get it from us. We, the people of South Africa, did not make that debt. We did not make those promises. We do not want their policies. We owe them nothing. They need to leave us alone. And we need to make sure we as a country are strong and united. And I think party politics has done very well to divide us. But we have a common enemy. And I think we have been absolutely abused by the international community for our resources. And once we start uniting as a people, getting rid of the party political system, voting for independent candidates that are held accountable through the processes we put in place, and strengthening communities through instilling freedom and self-reliance as examples, then we'll start to build a national identity and a strong state itself so that we are at the forefront of any negotiation we might have with any other country or any other international organization, instead of being beggars.
So your solution is that these people must leave us alone.
Absolutely. What has anything done to help us? I mean, I started school in 1995, and the United Nations had already infiltrated the education system. It already insisted on certain learning outcomes and all the rest. A lot of people, it's so quick to blame the ruling party for this and that, but so much of what is implemented at government level is influenced by international bodies. And that needs to come. We need to influence the international bodies. We don't want the international bodies influencing us. I believe we can be the perfect example of what a democracy in a multicultural society looks like, and other countries will then adopt what we are doing.
Yeah. So how would organic humanity movement ensure transparency without the traditional party structures? Let's say we have a governance of independence. How are people going to be ensured that the transparency? Because people are used to their political parties as much as they lie to them, but they are used to these political parties. But how is OHM actually going to ensure people's and transparency?
I don't think there is transparency currently, and the fact that you're in control of electing or unelecting your leaders is it. So we must look at the general role of a public representative is to communicate with the people what's happening in governments, and to communicate with the government what the people want, and to continue doing that. So despite what level of government you're at, if you're a public representative, that's your role. But it's government administration that actually implements basic services or whatever services the people require. And that's something that most people actually aren't aware of. People get very confused between party politics and actual government administration. So again, I think as we change the government structure, we will change how the culture of how government works in its administration, where the actual delivery of services take place. So it's going to be up to the public representatives to make sure that in government administration, the right processes are put in place to make sure the people get the job done. And I think that's going to be very exciting, because government administration is overlooked. You don't know, most of you don't know who your city manager is, but you know who your mayor is. Yet the city manager is signing off on some of the most important developers taking place in your community. And that just goes over and above most people's heads, because we haven't actually looked as a population. We're not taught in school, for instance, how government works and how politicians interact with administration.
Yeah. You've told us a lot about the organic humanity movement, and how, I'm sorry to bring this question again, how would you address the concerns that maybe your ideas are unrealistic or impractical? Now that people have heard everything that you guys have to propose, how would you actually address those concerns that maybe you guys, what you are proposing is not realistic or is impractical?
Well, I just say, how is the current system working for you? Do you feel like you're living your best life? Do you feel like you have opportunities? And, if your answer is yes, then good for you, carry on. But, we are accessing parts of the population that haven't voted since 1994, or who have never voted in their lives. There are 9 million people that are eligible to vote, but who are not even registered to vote. Then there's an additional average of 9 million people who are registered to vote, but on average don't actually go and vote when it is elections. So to combine that together, that's 18 million people who are completely disillusioned by the current system. They're choosing not to vote. They're choosing to stay at home. They're choosing not to participate in our democracy. And that is, quite frankly, about 7 million more than what the ruling party gets to be the ruling party. So we're going to continue targeting our message to those who will listen, those who are currently disillusioned with the electoral system. Because not voting does not help. When you abstain from voting, what happens is you just make the pool smaller and you strengthen the very parties that are causing you to not want to vote. So you have to vote. And now with the Organic Humanity Movement, with OM, you finally have an opportunity to vote not for a policy, not for an ideology, but for complete system change, to move us into a completely new time in our democracy where there is better democratic principles followed and where people's freedom are put above anything else.
Yeah. So what is your long-term vision for South Africa? Can you please try to paint that picture where Organic Humanity Movement is the one that is in charge of South Africa? What kind of South Africa would we live in?
Remember, I won't be in charge technically, but I understand what you mean. You mean like once the party political system's gone and we have elected our president and our members of parliament and our mayor and our local councillors, once that has been implemented. Big picture stuff. That is awesome. Firstly, before we get into the big picture stuff, please go read our manifesto on our website, om.org.za, because you'll get all the details there of the nuts and bolts of the changes we want to make. I think it's very important. It's a 10-page document, and it's really important that everyone reads it. And I'm sure most South Africans will get behind it. But big picture. I think, looking at the big picture, it's very hard, and I noticed this when we have problems all the time. We're always looking at government failure, and we're always looking at problems in our communities and social ills and all the rest. When you're so problem focused, which is how most South Africans feel, because it's right in front of you, we are all suffering to varying degrees. It's very hard to have a vision of what is possible. And I think this is a strength of OM. We do have a vision of what life can be. And what we see is a South Africa that is extremely strong as a nation, that we have everything that government is supposed to do is working. We have infrastructure, we have raw resources, we have enough energy for business to grow. Because right now, as long as you don't have power, as in electricity, you can't have economic growth. And this has been one of our biggest failures as a country in terms of our economic strength. So once we have those basics right, life for the average, and once we have, for instance, the education system is not going to look like it looks at all. It's going to be much more flexible, much more free. Children are actually going to be developing in a healthy way, not oppressed. Once those changes are implemented, once we have a thriving, robust democracy where people are open about how they feel and their principles and they're pushing for what they believe is right and all of that, what we're going to have is a country where people work together for an ultimate vision. And what we want is for government and corporations to leave people alone, give people the freedom to prosper without being controlled by institutions and by systems. So we are removing that control of governments and control of corporations over people's lives. And we don't want a surveillance state, for instance. I don't know how much you've seen in the news of all these cameras going up in the Western Cape. We don't want to live like that. Government has allowed SAPs to fail so that they can bring in what the international community wants, a surveillance state. We can fix the problems many problems at a community level with the help of government so that we don't have to live under the constant watchful eye of government. Government is putting itself currently in a position to have all control and all power over our lives, over our actions, over our words, and who knows, even over our thoughts one day. So what we need to do is make sure that the people of South Africa remain free, that they have access to their basic needs of survival, and that they have the freedom and opportunity to prosper. That government, that politicians, that the education system, and that the international financial system that we are bowing down to at the moment never gets in the way of their ability to provide for themselves and to grow wealth and to grow a life filled with purpose for themselves. So ultimately, our ultimate vision is the progress of the individual And the combined and collective progress of each individual will lead to the progress of humanity as a whole. And we hope that trickles down into the rest of the world. So we are no longer these slaves to these systems, and we awaken to our true potential as human beings.
Yeah. So how ready are you guys for the elections?
Medium. Medium. How do you like your steak? Okay, so like I said, after we pay the election funds, we have to fundraise again. So we have our candidates, which we're excited about. And now we are fundraising to have, info table packages. We're fundraising to print posters, which is a huge expense. But we are ready in terms of getting our message out there. We have our members who are ready and on the ground and already working in communities to tell people about the organic humanity movement. So in that sense, we're ready. And, it's 2 months and 3 weeks, and then it's the elections. It's around the corner. So we're as ready as we'll ever be. And we are very grateful to every person that allows us the opportunity to speak on their platform, including you, Thomas. Thank you so much. We really want to get the message out there. We haven't had much luck getting onto mainstream media, but we hope now that we're on the ballot, that will change and more people will get to hear our message. I think it's a message that most people can get behind, even if it means they have to think about it a little. And that's why I ask for everyone to please go read our manifesto. I'm accessible. You can contact the party on WhatsApp to ask any questions. You can go visit our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, our TikTok, our Instagram, our Twitter, and ask us, engage with us, ask us questions. We are there to answer.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Cape Independence Party? Man, they failed to get enough signatures to be on the ballot. What are your thoughts on that? And the second question is, what are your thoughts on the top 3 political parties that we have in South Africa today, the ANC, DA, and the EFF? Your personal
thoughts. To answer Cape Independence, the whole secession movement is a movement that is based on failure, in my opinion. And it's an excuse. I don't believe we should be dividing up the country. I don't think we should be dividing up the people of the country, and I don't think we should be dividing up the country's resources. I do not, if I live in Cape Town, if for some unknown reason they had to succeed in their secession, I will leave the Western Cape. I will not live under their reign and rule because I think it's directionless. I don't like the direction the Western Cape is going at all. So I think it'll be a huge blow to our sovereignty. I believe that as a country, we should work together. As a country, we should leave no one behind as we, the people of South Africa, work together to move on from past political systems into a new democracy where we can finally strengthen this country and the people from within. So I definitely don't agree with it. And I think, anyone that does support it in any way, they just really need to think a little further about how it's actually going to work. How has dividing ever resulted in strength in any way? And it doesn't. We, the people of South Africa, have an opportunity to work together to change the system. I'd rather have a longer process to strengthen the whole country than a quick process to attempt to strengthen a little portion of the country. I believe that South Africa as a whole has enormous potential, and we can all work together, and we shouldn't leave anyone behind. And then the other thing with the 3 top parties, one and the same. Really, they're all one and the same. They're very much funded by similar people or similar types of people. I think it's an illusion of choice. The 3 top parties give you an illusion of choice. And when I was with the opposition party, when I had that aha moment, that's when I left. When I realized this is just an illusion of choice. You've got the main ruling party to give hope to South Africans that apartheid will never come back. Great. Then you got the second of the main opposition that's there to give enough hope to the taxpayers to keep them in the country. So they keep paying tax to keep the machinery working, the machinery that only benefits business interests. And I'm not talking small local business, I'm talking big business. And then you got the third party that is just there to be that radical voice so that those that are truly angry, they feel like steam has been let off. They don't personally get angry enough to raise a resistance or a revolution. So those are the functions of the 3 parties. Quell the fears that apartheid will ever come back. And the second is to keep the taxpayers paying tax and happy with the status quo. And the third is to calm down the radical movements that might spring up as a result to government failure. They're just there for population control. So I have no respect for any of the 3 top parties. I honestly, long time ago, said I just wish the ruling party would get the act together and govern, because everyone would vote for them if that was the case. It's that simple, but it's not going to happen, because government failure at a national level is required so that international organizations and other countries can continue to benefit from our resources.
So before I let you go, what are your last words to the people who will be going to the polls?
I think, on the day of voting, you might feel tempted to stay at home. I say, please go and vote. Please, if you are registered to vote, go and vote. It is so important. But when you do vote, the strategy I would use, and I'm trying to be as impartial as possible, don't vote for a party that promises to save your life. Don't vote for a party that's promising you policy change or promising you that they can give you jobs or housing. If a party is promising you something, it means all they're trying to do is control you. Vote for any organization that is pushing nothing but system change. And I think that is the key, because that is what we need. We need to move on from the multi-party system and move towards a new democracy. And when you vote, educate yourself on all the parties that are on the ballot. There's going to be over 100 people. It's a lot. There was a statement by the IEC saying besides the represented parties, there's 101 parties at national level contesting. And that will be confirmed today, 12, exactly who's on the ballot and who's not. Go do your research now. You have 2.5 months. Go to all their websites, see what they stand for, read between the lines, see who funds them, who is their leader, how do they work, and make an educated decision. But ultimately, vote for system change. Don't vote for policy change. I think that is the most important.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen, from the founder of Organic Humanity Movement, Mayor Lauren Bernardo. Please tell us what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button. And the most important part, subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.